All right, first up we have Entrust's Marco Airo-Farulla, Regional Sales Director, with his spotlight on security, discussing identity-centric solutions, the foundation of enterprise security. He has over 20 years' experience and knowledge in the field of security and digital technological implementations. Gosh, who writes this? And he's mastered the art of enterprise integration and business transformation to empower companies to better serve their clients. He is proficient in consulting organisations across banking, transit, retail, telco, federal and state government, across a diverse global reach within Oceania, Middle East, North America and Africa. Welcome to the stage, Marc.
Thank you. Must have been taken off my my LinkedIn or something, that one, for sure.
Impressive though.
It is. Kia ora, thank you for having me. It's great to see the turnout today, so it's brilliant. Is that me or is it the air system? That's okay. So look, wanted to talk, I've got a couple of minutes, so I want to talk a little bit about cyber threats that are occurring. We had a couple of roundtables earlier, we were talking about privacy, we were talking about data protection, so my focus really is going to be around data protection and security. It was quite interesting, and a couple of stats here, but I'll go a little bit off topic. Lisa mentioned earlier that 50% roughly of people didn't trust government or an organisation. And then the other one was the converse, where 50% of the organisation didn't believe they have the right protection in place to protect this data. So there's obviously some commonality going on, but we are starting to see the growth of really, really significant major breaches that are occurring across the ditch where I'm based in Melbourne. We know what they are in terms of whether it be telco, government or enterprise, and around the world. So it's a real issue. The threat landscape and what we do, how we protect it, how we've been doing it for many, many years has changed. We talk about digital security, we talk about identity access management if it's people accessing the organisation's own internal environment, whether it be an employee. We're hearing, Andrew mentioned that 85%, I think he mentioned, or 86%, of threats are occurring from phishing through the employees themselves, sort of unbeknownst to them. And I don't think that's really changed. It's been ongoing, whether we've been working from home post-COVID or before that. It's just consistent, and it's really hard, very complex landscape. We know about the perimeter. We know about the firewalls, we know about the Cisco platforms and so forth. That's all needed, it's still required in this day and age. The reality though, it's changed, and it's moving to protect the data that you've got. That's what I really wanted to talk about today. So we talk about the new age of perimeter-based, still valid, but it's not adequate. And it's moving into identity, but it's fragmented. There are multiple systems out there typically that organisations have, so how do you work it through? You've got new technologies, lack of visibility, complex environments, use biometrics, use OTP, use passphrases. As an organisation, as Entrust, we've been supporting customers for 30 years in PKI. We know what it's like to deal with legacy technology. We know what it's like to evolve into the new space of live identification verification. We spent more than $500 million on a $500 million on a live identification platform earlier this year called Onfido. So we are looking at what the trends are, but more importantly, we're looking at how we can help customers move from where they are today and move into the future. One of the things that really stood out for me was this breach that occurred with MediSecure. And I think the significance why I brought it up here is that it wasn't a breach that occurred and people knew about it. They made a change if they wanted to go to a different provider, or we've got short memories and we've sort of forgotten about it. I'm not talking about us in the room here because we live and breathe it every day, but we're talking about citizens and people out in the real world. But then you've got things like this where it was the biggest subscription company in Australia that got breached, 2 months later, out of business, liquidated. That's major effect. So, what we need to look at as an industry, as leaders in our field, is what we need to do to prevent and secure this data that we've got. And the reality is that we may have data that we've got that we probably don't really need. ISO 271 says you probably don't need it, but we're getting it anyway. We're collecting it. I was overseas recently where my passport was taken, scanned, my driver's license, my international driver's license. All these things were taken from me. And if we talk about empowerment and as a person using a system and what trust we've got, I've got no trust in what is being done with that information, but what do? I can't do anything about it. So we need to protect that data and we need to secure it. Zero trust is a framework that we've heard a lot about. A lot of organisations are talking about it, wood through the trees type stuff. How do we evolve that conversation? Well, this is the forum. These forums here, we need to educate. We need to educate people within our business. We need to educate C-level to the users at the bottom level. I was speaking to a couple of guys outside, and there was a breach recently where username and password was on a sticky note on a screen. That happens, right? That's the reality of what we're dealing with, the lowest common denominator. So we need to do things to protect. We're in there already. The hackers are probably in an organisation already, harvesting that data. If we look at post-quantum and what that means, more importantly, they're probably already there. So how do we protect the data that we've got? And so from an organisation perspective, because I've got to talk about our business, we're looking at it from the user, we're looking at it from a user identity, we're also looking at it from a machine identity as well. We are looking at how to do the enrolment, as Andrew mentioned earlier, and Jason as well. We're looking at how to make it as frictionless as possible. We're also aware of the realities that you guys are using still traditional technologies that probably were put in place 20 years ago for accessing your laptop or an application or an environment within your workforce. Customers are also doing the same. If we look at banks and how they engage with their customers, whether they're traditional banks, brick and mortar, moving into IB to then neo or digital banks. There's so many things that we've got to manage and we've got to be responsible for. So we look at it from the perspective of how we can provide multiple factors of authentication and protect that digital asset, protect that environment, and then an overarching data encryption platform and solution over the data that then is harvested and collected for the purposes of allowing people access to machines, systems, and environments. So I guess some of the key takeaways, it's going to continue. Compromise is still going to occur. There's a proliferation of AI, it was mentioned earlier. That's really helping organisations like us in terms of how we're building and implementing platforms and solutions for the real world. Zero trust principles are critical. We're talking about protecting your digital assets, your keys, your digital certificates, your environments, your access to applications for an organisation, utilising hardware security modules. They've been around for 30 years. They still work today. They're fundamental. But then all these other overarching technologies that we can also talk about and solutions and platforms. Talking about zero trust can't be achieved without an identity-centric architecture. It's going to be really interesting to see how live identification makes its way. I was chatting to the ladies at the RealMe exhibition stand, and hats off to RealMe for doing it when they did. It's been going on for the last 10 years. That's amazing. It's leading the market if I look at some of the things that we're doing in other parts of the world. So if we look at what is going on in New Zealand, there's a lot of innovation. That's got to continue. And from a platform perspective, from an Entrust perspective, we're here to assist our customers, engage with them, look at how they're working at it from the legacy environments that they have to where they're wanting to go, because there needs to be a way that you can move that ship, move that environment forward, because it does take time as well. So, kia ora, thank you very much for your time, and appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Have we got any questions up here before you leave? One question. Do you think that the mistrust in government to manage personal data is more to do with general distrust and satisfaction in government services as a whole? Sorry, that was a random one.
Yeah, look, I don't, my personal view, maybe I might take on that one there, is that I think governments are doing some fantastic things. You know, if we look at what's happened from COVID, or pre-COVID to literally 6 months after COVID, and I spent a lot of time with the New South Wales Dom and his team at the time, the uptick of digital services and the enablement that it provided for all the people of New South Wales at all levels was phenomenal. I mean, it took us by storm, and so many people came on board to support and gain access to services and all the rest. And I think that that's fantastic. And we've got to celebrate where success is. We don't do much of it. Yeah. But there's always lessons to learn. So I think that's always going to be the case.
Kia ora, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.